Hello and welcome to this video where I will show you how you install, configure and test the Google Drive Spoke within the ServiceNow application. The Google Drive Spoke is part of the automation engine package and allows you to integrate files, folders, permissions and all these kinds of things from Google Drive into ServiceNow. My name is Daniel and these are my ServiceNow Bytes where I will show you various capabilities and features of the ServiceNow platform. If you're interested what you can do with the Google Drive Spoke, I recommend my other video where I give a quick demo of some of the features. I'll put the link up here. All right, let's get to it. This is a brand new instance from developer.servicenow.com, one that we also call at times PDI, Personal Developer Instance. Nothing has been done in that instance yet, so it is just brand new from factory. If we would go here to check for the Google Drive Spoke, let's say we go to the Workflow Studio. That is where you can find all the integrations, all the spokes, and can start to build your automations. So now within Workflow Studio, the interesting tab is obviously integrations. We want to integrate with Google Drive. Here we can see that there is no Google Drive Spoke yet installed as it doesn't come out of the box. So first we have to install that spoke. Now the Google Drive Spoke comes as part of the Integration Hub packages, which means we cannot install it directly. We need to go to the ServiceNow store. This is where we ship applications, plugins, spokes, and also partners can provide applications in here. So let's go in here and search for the Google Drive Spoke. You can see it coming up here under integrations, Google Drive Spoke. So this is where we see all the details about the Google Drive Spoke. We can see the compatibility to different versions. We can see license requirements, terms and conditions, and also what kind of features it actually brings that we can use to build our own automations. Now what we need to do is basically click on either view requests or on git get. Might be depending a bit on if you're already logged in or not. I am logged in with my user, so I can click on request. I type in my instance name, which is the one from the PDI. Let's validate that instance and say we want to do a recording, if I can spell that correctly. Click on request. Now in my case, obviously, as I'm a ServiceNow employee, I get your request is automatically approved. Your mileage may vary. There might be an approval process going through, checking that you're actually entitled to use that spoke. You will need one of the Integration Hub packages to access all these spoke information. With that done, let's jump back to our ServiceNow instance and get the spoke installed. Back into the instance, all we have to do is go to our application manager. You can go to applications, scroll down, you'll find all available applications, click on all, and you get to the application manager. You see there's a ton of 900 or so different applications. Again, that depends on the version that you're running and the entitlements that you have. And let's say we need to synchronize that now. So it synchronizes with the store to get the latest updates, which will bring back or which will make Google Drive available. All right, sync has been completed. Let's start our search for the Google Drive Spoke. Google Drive. And you will find the Google Drive Spoke now available for us to install. Let's click on the Google Drive Spoke tile here. Again, you get a whole bunch of information, helpful resources like the documentations link, compatibility, key features, similar information you get from the store itself. Click on install, take the latest versions that we have. You can see it also brings in Integration Hub action templates for data streaming and all other dependencies it needs. Let's say install now. While this is installing, that will just take a couple of seconds. So we'll check back once it's complete how to configure the spoke. All right, as you see, the Drive Spoke has been successfully installed. The next step that we actually need is creating credentials on Google side. Okay, over to Google. You navigate to URL console.cloud.google.com. I'll put that link down into the description. And you will end up on a page like this. I am logged in with a similarly brand new account, now Bytes, that has nothing set up yet. So you see all the steps that I need to do to get the API keys needed for the integration. So all we need to do here is we select the project. There is obviously no project yet created. So let's do a new project and call it now Bytes. I don't tie it to any organization as I'm doing that as a private demo. If you're using Google Workspace, that might be a little different. You want to have that as part of your Workspace package, which entitles way more features than what my private Google account here has. So let's create that project. Takes a moment to do that. All right, select this project and get into it. And you see a ton of information here that Google offers you, because there's obviously a lot that you could do with Google, location APIs, maps API, and so forth. What we need is APIs and services, enabled API and services, because we need to enable each API that we want to use at Google. See, you don't have any APIs available yet. To get started, enable APIs or go to the APIs library. So let's just do that. Go to the library and find Drive. And we see there is Drive labels, Drive activity, there's a whole bunch of things. The one required is Google Drive API. That's the back end that our Spoke uses. So let's take this one, enable it. This will allow my user, now Bytes, to use this Drive API. We'll get here. It is created. You can see some statistics and stuff, how often it has been used and so forth. Obviously everything empty. And as Google says, yes, to use this API, you may need credentials. So let's create credentials. So we have a choice here of what type of credential we need. There's one accessing user data and one application data. In our case, I'm going to use user data. Click on next. And it wants to ask us, okay, well, who's this for? I basically say ServiceNow demo instance. It wants an email address for the support. It's obviously mine and my Google account here. We can upload logos and contact information, how to reach to the developer. Let's say that's me. Save and continue. So here we have different scopes that this API offers, and we need to tell Google which scope we want to actually allow to access. So click add, remove scopes. You can see there's like 20 different rows that you can do. You get API names, API scopes, and you can find basically which ones we need in the documentation. So for right now, we can basically say we want to have the Drive API authenticate for the Drive. We want to do file manipulation like edit, create, delete, and so forth with files. You can even have a read-only account if you only want to read. We don't do that. There's Drive metadata. Let's add this one. Not the read-only ones. We don't need scripts and activities, so that should actually be it. Let's update that. You can see the scopes have been added here. Save that. And now we get a OAuth client ID. It asks us what type of application we're actually integrating with. Now, ServiceNow is a web application, so we use a web application. We give it a name, say ServiceNow. And you scroll down, there's one more setting we have to do, and that's actually the authorized redirect URI. So we need to let Google know where it can redirect after a login. So let's add an URL here. This is obviously our instance, and it's called OAuth redirect.do. Click on create. And finally, we get what we need. And we click on done. Coming back to the start page of the API service enabled. And if you click on credentials, you can see our new credential that has been generated for a web application. You can see the client ID again. And if you open that credentials, you can also see the client secret. That's the second part in the secret sauce we need to hook it up to ServiceNow. So now that we have the client ID on the client secret, there's one more step we need to do to make that API available. Google has kind of a security layer in this here, a security step. So we need to make that API publicly available. To do so, you go to the OAuth content screen, and here you can see that the status of my API is in testing, which means nobody will be able to use that API for the time being. And what you would need to do is actually click that Publish App button. This, however, triggers a whole process in Google. You need to kind of validate yourself and stuff like that. So that is probably something, if you're using Google Workspace from a corporate perspective, which has been done already from your corporate. I cancel this and I'll take a shortcut for us developers and engineers. You can actually scroll down here to a section called Test Users. And we're going to just add a user that is allowed to use our API. So for this, I'm going to use my own user, my Google user now Bytes that this account is linked to. Click on Save. This will add the user as a test user, and this user is now allowed to log in to Google Drive using the API. This is all we need to do on the Google side. Let's jump back to ServiceNow. Back on ServiceNow, to create the credential record or the connection from ServiceNow, we need to make sure we are in the right scope of the application. Otherwise, our Google Drive spoke will not be allowed access to the credential record. So for this, we use the application picker here on top, and we search for Google Drive spoke, select the Google Drive spoke, let the page refresh, and we're good to go. So back into ServiceNow in the Workflow Studio on the integrations. That's where we can see the Google Drive here. Now let's add the connection with the credentials that we have just created. Clicking add the connection, you can see most of the information is already pre-filled for us, like the name for it, the URL. As all Google APIs go through the same URL, that's very simple to do. Scrolling down, the only information required is the client ID and the client secret. So let's supply that information with what we have generated at Google. The ID and the secret. And here you can also actually see the OAuth redirect URL, which we entered into the Google credentials record just some minutes ago. Let's create that and get the token. As you do that, Google will ask you which account to use. As I have multiple Google accounts, I get this kind of pop-up. So let's select my Now Bytes account to log in with that. And you will get a message that this app has not been verified, as we are still in testing mode, which is what I have explained earlier. But as the user that we use is allowed to, we can actually ignore that message and just say continue. We know what we're going to do. We select all the APIs that are in here, and you can see that is kind of edit, create files, download Google Drive files, view photos and stuff. So you have very fine granular control what you want to allow or not. Now and then at the bottom, we just say continue, which will create the necessary credentials and tokens. And here we are. Our Google Drive spoke is configured. All that's left for us to do is basically just test it and make sure it does what we want it to do. So go back to the home page, go for example to actions and find a Google Drive action. So I'm going to search for an action called create folder. You can just search for anything contains folder. You see the Google Drive spoke has a whole bunch of things, and the one I'm interested in is create folder for the sake of testing. This will open up the action designer. Here we go. So this is the create folder action out of our Google Drive spoke. It has all the necessary inputs and logic that we need to create a folder. Let's give it a test run. We just give in a name, folder 1, and we need a description. That is just Google's convention. Every file or folder needs a name and a description. We could supply parent folders to nest it and things like that. But for the simple test, I just run it like that, click on OK. This will execute against the Google storage that we have, and just within a few seconds, there we go, it's completed. So coming over to Google, you can see that folder has already been created, is here, created just now. Our spoke is working and operational. So that's a wrap. We have successfully installed, configured, and tested the Google Drive spoke now in a ServiceNow instance. You hopefully have seen that this was not something really difficult, just some little kniffs and tips that you need to know, and off you go. Let me know what you will do with the Google Drive spoke down in the comments, or what you like about the video or not. Thank you for watching.